Tonight, the GOAT District brings you a new show, new format, the same old GOATness. We bring you the best. Tonight, we talk Dynasty. We talk value, buys, sells, and we bring back the perfect guy to kick this off. He's a philosopher of Dynasty, a master of strategy, Jax Falcone. Welcome back to this new show, my friend. How are you, brother?
Thank you so much. I'm ready to go. Talk a little buys and sells, and I can't wait.
We're super jacked. Let's kick this thing off.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Like I said, we have a new show tonight. We're super excited to kick this off with our man, Jax Falcone. You know him from the Undroppables. Buddy, like I said, man, we're so excited tonight. We're going to talk 12 players that our audience can go out there right now, are Dynasty degenerates. You know, we're all degenerate. We're all at that level. But this is going to help you guys buy, sell, basically increase the value of your rosters is what we're trying to do this time of year. And that's the goal of this show. Theo, how pumped are you for this? We've been talking about this. This is a big deal, man.
Yes, I think this is like the fourth time Scott's been in the GOAT District. He's like an honorary GOAT at this point, and we really respect his opinion. If anybody isn't following him and the rest of the guys at the Undroppables, they're putting out some really, really sharp content. Just tremendous stuff being put out in both written content and also on podcasts. And every time Scott's here, we end up having some very good conversations about dynasty values, about general dynasty strategy. I'll put Scott up against pretty much anybody. So this is a great way to kick it off. And I think it's an underrated time of the year to make dynasty trades. I've made a few in the last 2 weeks. People are very active. People are paying attention to not only the rookie prospects, but also the NFL playoffs. You sometimes have a little bit of a dead period right after the Super Bowl. So it's really a great time to get it in. And I'm sure we're going to have some great stuff tonight. Dan, are you getting any deals done?
So far, no. I've been more focused
too busy
on
drafting.
baseball.
Too busy drafting best balls.
However, I just want to read off something real quick, if you guys don't mind. I know this is kind of coming out from left field, but this is something that our good friend Randy Memphis Young put into one of our chats today.
Oh, that was so beautiful. Like,
yeah,
Randy. Speaking of philosophy of dynasty.
Yes, Randy, as we know, is he's an outstanding dynasty player, and he's got his finger on the pulse of dynasty, but as well as anybody, really. And so this is what he said. He says, there's a psychology among dynasty gamers that most refuse to admit. The winning teams actually want to win, but only in season. They want to play footsie with rookies and draft picks in the offseason, even if it hinders what could be a long-term run. Best ballers and seasonal players are the most guilty. They've done the work or on doing it now, so they have an idea of who they think will be good in the upcoming season. They just refuse to use this knowledge in their dynasty leagues by going out and acquiring players their research indicates will have a big season ahead. Rookie picks and beautiful women make the smartest men, and sometimes women do the shit they know they shouldn't do. So, just any thoughts on that? I mean, I think that's very well stated. I mean, sometimes even though we want to, we know what we need to be doing. We know what we should be doing. We're not always doing what we should be doing. So, that was that was kind of a nice slap in the face for me. Hopefully for you guys as well, or maybe not, because maybe you guys are better than me. But definitely.
But it's a great way to kick off the show. We wanted to start off on a macro level in Dynasty and get a feel for the room. We're going to talk about these players. This is, like Theo said, a very underrated, I think, for a lot of Dynasty players time of year, because you want to get ahead of your league mates, right, with some of these trades. And I know, Theo, you're one of the most active guys. I think you and Nate Pilmer are probably the two most active traders I know in Dynasty.
And Jamie, I'll also add, not everybody's listening to the Undroppables or the GOAT District. We've had John Lobb and Matt Hicks on, and we have Scott on tonight. Not everybody knows the value of the rookie pick at this point. Everybody knows Bijan Robinson, but I think that there's some people that are always a little bit scared of picking like the 6, the 7, the 8, and being wrong. And sometimes you can get those picks right off people's hands.
So is that Theo just taking advantage of the unknown and capitalizing on that?
I think that in any Dynasty league you're in, from just a macro perspective, there is going to be some people that need to see it first, no matter what. Those people in Dynasty are rarely the most successful players.
It's called FOMO.
And it's just fear of being wrong. And I'd rather take 85 cents on this dollar worth of value with this pick. And there's also certain people that are scared of holding an older asset. Like I told you, and Dan, I showed you the trade I made in an FFPC. I had a bunch of tight ends. I moved the 205 non-super flex with Chigo Okonkwo to get Amari Cooper, who I think could be a wide receiver 2 next year on a team that's a contender. It's like, what's the point of moving Amari this early in the year? But I think certain people are scared in either direction. So it's a great time of year. And that was, Dan, I'm glad you read that, because that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, a lot of times, Dan, you see like I think I mentioned it about the 1.01, right? So people want to draft the 1.01 more than they want to put Bijan Robinson in their lineup in week 1, right? In other words, like there's such an excitement behind going, I get to pick him. All the hope is there. Once he's a guy on your roster, like Saquon's awesome, JT's awesome, but like they're yesterday's news. And, it's funny because they're exactly what you hope Bijan will be, is something like, a CMC, a JT, one of those players. Yet you'd much rather have that 1.01 than any of those players for most gamers. And it's what you're talking about, this sort of, love affair with the picks. And one other thing that Theo mentioned is like, these picks are going to increase in value as we get closer to the draft. It's not because people don't know their names. Even a lot of Dynasty gamers, we know the names, but the combine, the landing spot, all the spots that were, all of a sudden now you can see CJ Stroud starting for the Houston Texans. I want to pick him, or whatever the case might be. The hot new name that got drafted in the 2nd round that, we didn't see coming. Jalen Hyatt now is a real player, whatever. You start to put the excitement level all around that rookie draft. Those rookie picks increase in value from now until the actual pick is made. And so a lot of times I'm a little bit patient at this time of year with those picks, not because there isn't good deals. If there's a great deal, jump on it. But for the most part, I'm not looking to sell those picks unless it's a real good deal for me.
Well, you're selling low, right? Because like you said, it's only as we go through all the propaganda of the rookies as we get to the draft, like it's going to keep escalating in value, right?
Bingo.
Yeah, and then kind of the other side of that coin too is the veteran players. Like, this rings especially true when you're talking about people doing best ball and all of that, because we're looking at what is the actual value of this player next year. Not worrying about what is their value in 2024, 2025, 2026, and to a certain extent. In Dynasty, there's kind of an age point with every player where you have to stop worrying about that. I mean, it just doesn't matter anymore, right? Because if you can get them and they're going to be useful to you in the current year, that is by far the most important year of any year. Whatever happened, like take a Tyler Lockett for example.
Great example.
Yeah, here's a player where, I don't know if he's going to be any good in 2024, 2025, but in 2023, I think there's an excellent chance he's going to be a very good player. He's going to be a contributing dynasty asset. He's going to be somebody you can put in your starting lineup every week. And, guys are going to let like the 109, 110 or whatever stand in the way of picking up Tyler Lockett. Because they don't want to trade away that pick, because that pick could turn into be, it could be anything. It could even be a boat. I mean, we just don't know.
There it is.
But on the other hand, I mean, if you're going for a dynasty title, Tyler Lockett is going to be worth more to you than the 109 or 110 or whatever it is you have to, pay to get him. And a lot of players are just afraid to make that move.
I think another one that, Dan, I think that you've really taught me over the years is it's just a psychological thing, and it seems so stupid, but people put a lot more weight into having the 112 than they do the 202.
Yes.
It literally makes no sense. If we lined up, if we went to Fantasy Mojo and looked at like the FFPC dynasty leagues for the last 10 years, and I showed you the players drafted between 109 and 202, the hit rates are really close.
Well, it's tiers. If you're not tiering them, you understand it. If you're not, though, you're like, ooh, first rounder.
Well, and Theo, if instead of making it the 109 and the 202, if it was pick 9 and 14, they would be looked at totally different, is your point.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. It's just a weird mentality. So, like, getting early seconds off people is easier than getting a late first, and it's almost the same pick. It's just a very weird thing. And I had a question for Scott, Dan, and JD, not on the show sheet, but one thing I try to do this time of year is I try to sometimes consolidate my roster and add like an elite piece. Are you guys looking to consolidate, or is it kind of league like roster size? I mean, what's your general strategy on that? Because some of my successful trades have been over the years, like looking back, where I get an elite asset and maybe I give up like 3 players that are players you want in Dynasty, but not necessarily like team changing 20 point per game type guys. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
It's my favorite type of trade. I mean, and especially in most leagues, 12 team start 10. That's great. I mean, if you're in 14 teams or, 12 team leagues where you're starting, 12 or something, but if you're 10 or 12 team leagues that are starting, 9 or 10, that's like the best, because you don't really need the depth. Depth only provides you insurance, but whatever. I mean, if you're not starting those players, if they're non-starters, at least on a weekly basis, or at least an easily replaceable starter for an elite asset, oh my God. I mean, this is like, the best trade in Dynasty. It's literally how you build dynasties, because then, holding Justin Jefferson over the course of time is going to be a good thing, whereas you can always replace, I don't know, making it up, but Michael Gallups and players like that. So, yeah, of course, that's a huge slam if you can do it.
Right, yeah, and in one of my early days of Dynasty, I think this was probably 2016 or something like that. It was right after Tyler Eifert had his huge year. I traded off Travis Kelce for Tyler Eifert and Mark Ingram, who had also had a really big year. Now, in fairness, Pat Mahomes was not on the team yet, so we didn't know this. But on the other hand, I traded off, and this was in a tight end premium league, I traded off the elite tight end for, 2 really good pieces, which looked like they would probably perform for, several more years. With Tyler Eifert, that was not true. With Mark Ingram, it was a little bit more true. But the value of those 2 pieces never came close, even though the total of them was, 140% of Travis Kelce. The net effect on my team was very negative. And that was one of those things that I did it, and it's a caution to me every single time I put together a trade. I'm like, wait, I need to think about this.
That's a deep scar right there. That's a deep scar. Whenever you're bringing up Tyler Eifert as a lesson learned, that's going back in the time machine. Poor Dan.
I got JD posted last summer. We posted a lot of our trades on Twitter, and I remember I got roasted on this. I told the guys in the summer I want to go get DK Metcalf shares. This is when DK was at his lowest redraft position. We saw DK slipping into like the 6th round. People had so much fear of that offense. And I went out and tried to trade for him in a bunch of dynasty leagues. In one league, I had a team that was okay, but it had a lot of like pieces. And I traded the 111 Jerry Jeudy and Gabe Davis for DK Metcalf, and I got just roasted for that trade. And you know, the 111 ended up being George Pickens. So down the road, this could come back to get me. But right now, if I offered you Jerry Jeudy and Gabe Davis for DK Metcalf, you're getting laughed off. So I think consolidating for a player you know is even if it looks like a slight overpay, go for it.
So that's a great one right there, Theo. That's exactly what we're talking about. Is those types of players that are who knows? I mean, Jerry, all those players could bite you in the ass. The 111 can bite you in the ass. Jerry Jeudy and Gabe Davis could have obviously pour one out, but those players, all three of them, could have made you look like a fool. But you still were like, I don't care. I'm getting DK. I know what I'm getting. I'm getting an elite level talent, and especially on a buy low situation, right? I mean, you overpaid on a buy low. So what? Great job.
Yeah, but
exactly.
It's funny, Theo, you asked the question. I specifically wrote under one of these questions, my themes for this time of year is upgrading and consolidation. And I think a lot of the high stakes sites, especially if you're playing Dynasty, they're not as deep as some of these MFL sites where we're going 30, 35 deep. You're usually at 20 players on your roster, and then you got to cut them down to 16. So you really learn that when you get into this time of season, you want to consolidate, you want to upgrade, you want to increase the value of your team, your portfolio. You're not looking to fill gaps and depth and positions and starters versus bench. You're looking at your team as a whole. How can I increase my value throughout this season? When you get closer to the season, you can start worrying about your starters and the depth and positions and so on. So I'm looking at this time of year. I'm looking to buy the dips. We're going to talk about some of the players tonight, and this is why the show is created, Theo. Is for this exact thing. Is we want to help guys do this exact thing this time of year and throughout the off season, so they can increase the value of their rosters and not worry about I need an RB2 at this time of year.
Yeah, for sure. And here's another just real quick thought on dynasty value and everything else. As long as we're way out in the weeds,
it's the best place.
Every once in a while, the TV is on in the background as I'm like doing something else or whatever. And the other day, Let's Make a Deal was on, and I'm kind of not really paying attention to it, but all of a sudden at this particular point, there was something I'd never, I don't really watch the show. Maybe they do this all the time. I don't know. But anyway, these two contestants got up there and they gave each of them $1,000. And they said, okay, we're going to bid on a couple of items here, unseen. You can bid as much or as little of your $1,000 as you want, right? So anyway, and of course, there's the chance that you're bidding on, something that's absolutely has no value whatsoever.
Bar soap.
Yeah, bar soap or whatever, whatever they call it these days. So anyway, this one person, the first item, one of them bids $300, the other one bids $350. So the one who bids $350 wins it. They get something that's worth like $2,700, right? Then they get to bid on the next item. So the person who had lost that bid bids because they're like, well, if you don't bid on anything, well, whatever money you have left, you get to keep it. So she's like, I'm just going to bid $100. And the other person is like, I'm bidding my $650 because I've already bid $350 and I've gotten something worth $20, I've gotten something worth more than my entire $1,000, right? So why not go for broke here? So then she wins another prize that's worth like $2,500. And then the other person, is sitting there and they've got, basically their whole $1,000 left. And then the guy's like, okay, we also have what's behind this curtain. So you can keep your $1,000 or you can give it to me for what's behind the curtain. And of course, you know what happens here.
Everybody goes for the $1,000.
She's like, no, I'll give you the $1,000.
Yeah,
she goes for what's behind the curtain. And of course, at that point, it's a zonk, right?
It could be a boat.
It could be a boat, yeah.
Could be a boat.
And she almost said exactly that same thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, But at a certain point, because to me, the most instructive thing is the one person has understood, hey, I already won. Now I've got $650 basically of free money. I'm gonna press my luck on that. And sometimes you have to do that on dynasty trades. When you win a trade, sometimes you need to take that winnings and see, hey, can I press my luck, and can I make this something even better?
Yeah, and the other lesson is lose the min. And so a lot of people lost the max by going for the could be a boat. And, it's a poker term, but, when you think you're beat, when you think you're behind, when you think you might be stepping in it, you just need to stop. And you might have already lost, some sort of money in the hand, but you just sort of, I'm going to lose the min. I'm going to fold here. I know I'm beat. And same thing in fantasy football. Like sometimes you just go, you know what? I missed the trade window with a couple of these deals, but I'm not going to just double down and make some sort of trade that isn't going to behoove me. I'm just going to, hold back and be patient.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. So, do we have anything else to talk about before we get into the nitty gritty with the players? No, just because I didn't even see Theo. We both forgot. Do you have a hard out, Jax? Is it?
I'm here, but I don't know what's going on with the cam.
Yeah,
you're freezing. Maybe leave and come back.
Sure.
Just sometimes that helps. That's Dan's IT support. Usually that's his advice. So we talked to, the whole idea here was to give people an idea what you're, because the last thing you want to do is make a trade without a goal or a reason to make a trade. You're not just trading to trade this time of year. Let's see if we can get him back.
Yeah.
There we go.
Nice
and smooth. So let's get into, I was just saying, Jax, the whole point of this was let's give a macro kind of thought process strategy this time of year before we get into the actual players. But let's dive into the players. I'm going to kick this thing off. We're going to start at the quarter. We're going to go with the elephant in the room. Let's call it. Lamar Jackson going into his 6th season right now. There's a lot of questions. Theo talks about uncertainty and, capitalizing. This is the perfect example. So on the one hand, you have your dual threat QB. He's given us the highest fantasy point total ever, surpassed Aaron Rodgers in 2019. On the other hand, you've got the injuries. He's missed double digits games in 2 seasons now. You've got the dependency on the running game, which is going to increase the chances of injury as well. Now you've got missed games. You've got contract issues in Baltimore. You don't know where he's necessarily. There's trade rumors with Atlanta. So this guy for me is like the perfect, way to kick this off. And maybe I'll go to you first, Jax. Are you kind of buying him at his lowest point? And I'll throw on a chart just kind of showing his value in the last little bit. He's literally at the lowest he's been in a while, if not ever. Or are you kind of like, you know what? I'm either holding, I missed the window, or I'm staying away.
I'm buying. I mean, I think he's an absolute buy because we've seen him do it, and even at his low points, he's still a top 10, fantasy quarterback, and he still wins. Like he hasn't really had he hasn't had a losing season, right? I mean, he's been a winning quarterback at every level, and so far so good in the NFL, even when things have crumbled around him. So for me, look, when things were really good, he was the MVP and set, records. And when things were bad, he was still productive and kind of found a way to win. Now, that may be more Baltimore than him, but I don't know. Probably not, right? I mean, I think it's probably more him than it is just the sort of infrastructure. Probably a little bit of both. But for me, yeah, just let's see it. Because I think in a lot of people's minds, he's outside the top, maybe 5 or 6. He's probably on the outside looking in of the elite. Burrow, Herbert, Mahomes, Allen, Hurts. That's 5. I'm saying he's outside that in most people's eyes. Not saying I'd trade any of those guys straight up for him or anything like that, but I'm just saying when that value starts to dip, even though he's pretty much a perennial, top 5 finisher, I'd like to buy into that. Now the injuries are what they are. I mean, that's just baked into the cake. So, he was healthy for 2 seasons and nicked up for 2 seasons. I think we can hope that he won't be so bad going forward,
I was just going to add, Scott, sorry, Theo, don't mean to cut, but if you don't have one of those top guys, right? If you don't have the Mahomes in your league, if you don't have the Burrow, that Josh Allen, this might be your only opportunity to compete at that position with those teams, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with same idea. Jump on the opportunity. Sorry, Theo.
But by the way, I had a ton of Lamar in my portfolio this year, and it's like he's such a winning player. Like I won when he was playing and didn't when he got hurt. So I understand, fantasy gamers and managers getting sort of burned by him, but I mean, when he's playing, it's like really awesome. So, the injuries suck, but the performance is there no matter what. Anyway, go ahead, Theo. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think that you hit the nail on the head that the injuries suck, but when he's on the field, he's producing in a big way. He was QB6 in points per game this year. So the weeks you had him, if you had Lamar Jackson, you most likely started the season 4-1 or 5-0 because he was ripping off, tremendous scoring numbers. Last year, he also had injury problems. He was quarterback 8 in points per game. Then you look at 3 seasons ago, he finished as QB10, he finished as QB8 in points per game, and then he's got the QB1 overall year. So you're talking about in points per game, the lowest he's been is QB8. I think that this is a time to buy, and I think that we sometimes think that the situation is going to get worse. Sometimes the situation gets better. He's 26 years old. If somebody makes a commitment to him and goes all in, like I think that the dynasty player is kind of sour from the fact that Russell Wilson just failed in Denver. Russell Wilson didn't have the dynasty value of Lamar Jackson, but if Lamar Jackson moves, like you say Atlanta, like put him in Atlanta. Like I'm not an Arthur Smith fan, but I think Arthur Smith could get a ton out of Lamar Jackson, and that's an indoor environment. Weather doesn't factor in. They would build the team around him. Like I believe in the talent. I think he's probably closer to like QB4 in terms of dynasty value, QB5, and I think you could get him for around QB8 cost. If I offer you Trevor Lawrence for Lamar Jackson, you're thinking about it if you're scared.
Well, that's a decision you're making right now in best balls, right, Dan? Is Lamar and Lawrence, and I actually went Lawrence not only because I had Etienne, but you're thinking
stacking, JD.
Sorry? Yeah. Always be stacking. No, but even without the stacking, you're thinking one guy's on the up with an offense that was like new. They're on the ascending, whereas the other guy, I mean, it's rocky. Yes, you can have that rocket ship year and you can hit hard, and if the price is right, for sure. But if I'm deciding, and I'm using best ball, I know we're talking about dynasty, but if I'm looking for 2023, I'm leaning Lawrence. Dynasty, again, Lawrence gives you, he's kind of the fresh new toy right now. He kind of gives you a bit more floor almost with that same ceiling, in my opinion.
I think in Dynasty, you're probably at the point where you could probably trade Trevor Lawrence for Lamar Jackson plus. Am I wrong here?
I think you're right. And what's interesting is, if you think Trevor Lawrence is the play in 2023, then he's definitely the play in Dynasty, because I mean the only reason we like Lamar is the ceiling, right? Is the sort of obviously he has floor too, I understand, but it's just that super, supernova that he can be if he throws for 25 touchdowns. I mean, he threw for 36 in his his MVP season, but just 25 touchdowns and then just enough on the ground, 900 to 1100 yards plus another, how many touchdowns, right? 5 or 10. And that season is huge. That's a huge, huge season. That's going to carry you. Now, in order for Trevor Lawrence to sort of replicate that, he has to have a huge season throwing. Now, he's been so efficient that I just think that in Dynasty, he's such security. He's going to be around quarterback 1 for like how many years? Like, unless something terrible happens to him, like when is he going to be, outside the top 15 quarterbacks? Like, not for another 10 years or something. So for that reason, Trevor is such a bankable asset in Dynasty. But Lamar offers, that league winning upside, especially in a week-to-week basis. If you're just a good team, Lamar can go off in a certain game and just really win you weeks and could win you a championship.
Right. So let's throw a different quarterback in the mix. Like, let's say that you've got Justin Fields and somebody else has Lamar Jackson. Is that a trade you would make straight up?
I mean, you almost have to consider it just because Lamar is the more accomplished player. and has more sort of tying him to, opportunity. Right now, Justin Fields is, a rookie quarterback or, on a rookie contract. And so therefore, if he doesn't win, right? I mean, the whole thing attaching Lamar to playing time is he wins, right? Like he wins. So it's like you take him out and you put in Huntley and they're like, but Lamar wins. Whereas, Fields hasn't won yet. Now, if he does win, great. But if he doesn't, they're going to look to replace him. And then where does he go? So his sort of, future is a little bit more murky. Certainly his fantasy performance is not murky.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Lamar is basically that sports car that is going to spend some time in the garage.
Yeah.
But man, it's fun.
It's just part of the package. I mean, you buy one of those things, it's going to spend some time in the shop. It's just
you just got to have the Tyler Huntley loaner car.
Right. Exactly. But that's exactly the thing. I mean, if you've got the Lamar Jackson model, you want to have a good, reliable, Derek Carr model or something like that.
Yes.
To you see what I did there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you need a Derek Carr to go right with
Derek Carr.
Yes.
But it's true. In Superflex, drop it. In Superflex leagues, I think it's true all the time that you do want to have depth at the quarterback position because it can change very quickly. I mean, if you had Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, and Derek Carr, you're like, dude, I'm pretty well set this year. I think I'm going to compete. I can just pick the right one. And Stafford's hurt, Brady's terrible, Carr gets benched. You're like, what? Like it just, you know what I'm saying? So
it's almost like running back. It's a quarterback in Superflex is almost like running back. You want depth, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you have some studs, it's obviously great. If you have two of the top guys, I mean, if you're rolling Hurts and Mahomes, okay, you don't need as much depth. But you know what I mean? In general, even with Hurts, he got hurt and was not playing down the stretch for you. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely fragility in these quarterbacks, who are running more now. And, it's funny how it is, right? They protect them, right? But yet they're getting hurt. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of put a bow on it, I mean, I think, Lamar Jackson is that quarterback who is right now if he's going to go at a discount, right now is the time he's going to go at that discount.
Yep.
Because he had an off year, even, like the last several weeks he was playing, he had kind of an off year. The Ravens offense was not working well, and it was affecting him. It was affecting his numbers, and then he gets hurt, and now we have all this uncertainty about where is he going to play in 2023. The trifecta of those things, if you're the Lamar Jackson owner, that very well could be wearing on them. You need to at least go find out, is that wearing on the Lamar Jackson owner in my league?
That's a great point. That's a great point. So before we keep this going, we got to give a shout out to the chat. You guys are killing it with the comments. Bring the questions. We'll get to the questions, so keep dropping them. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Guys, smash the like. That always helps us out. It's a small thing, easy to do, and it really helps the channel grow and get out there. Theo, you want to go to the next? I'll let you. You want to start the next one? Andrew's guy.
We don't need to spend as much time as Lamar, but Trey Lance.
Yeah.
This is a name that Andrew Schellenberg wanted to include tonight. Andrew's at La Quinta, La Quinta Point happy hour tonight, so he's not able to make it. But Trey Lance is super interesting. And I spoke to Scott about this earlier, and I spoke to Andrew a little bit, just trying to price him. Let's take it to Superflex for this one. We're talking about a guy with incredible draft capital, no sample size as a starter at all in the NFL, not a lot of sample size in college, but it looks to me like the writing's on the wall that San Francisco, I think, is moving to Brock Purdy next year as their starter heading the year. What are you willing to pay for Trey Lance in a Superflex league, or are you trying to acquire him? Start with Scott on this one.
Oh boy. So I've been the guy, man, who's been like, I don't understand why we're so sure this guy's any good at all. I mean, I mean this, I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying, why do we think, what data points do we have that says Trey Lance is any good at professional football? I just want to know what they are. Tell me what they are.
That's it.
There's none.
Eight games in 2 seasons.
What we have is San Francisco spending 3 first-round draft picks on it.
Bingo.
That's what we have.
That's right.
Which, Does that mean he's any good at football? Actually, I don't know.
Scott,
You know?
had the best stat. Scott,
Yeah.
your stat on pass
Yeah,
attempt.
the stat that I've been shouting, and since 2017, Trey Lance in college and pros has 420 total pass attempts.
Right. Yeah. So what is he?
There it is. He's thrown 420 passes since 2007. My man pays attention. My man's paying attention. It's exactly it. Since 2017, he has 420 pass attempts. Like, it's just, it's not that he's sitting behind somebody. It's that he was a small school, played for JV, right? He won the JV college championship, whatever the hell they call that. He was on a stacked team.
FCS, everyone.
Thank you. We call it JV. Listen, he played the JV championship, won that with a stacked team. He was very efficient. He didn't throw a single pick. That's amazing. He looks pretty good. But there's nothing there that's like, oh, that's a very NFL ready program. It's just not. And even college in general,
pro style offense. Is what
sure, whatever. Yeah, the pro style offense where he just has all the time in the world because he had a great offensive line and Christian Watson streaking. He probably underachieved on that team. Who knows? I mean, look, he might be great, and it's still a possibility. He has elite upside based off of his raw skills. I see that. But there's just so little to show that he might be. So in the price that you have to pay is a top 12 dynasty quarterback. At that price, I'm out. So I don't hate players that hate ADPs. If right now he was outside the top 24 quarterback, I'd be like, dude, buy Trey Lance. What the hell's going on? So it's really just pricing. If you can steal Trey Lance, I say definitely 100% go get him. But if you have to pay up for him, I don't think he's worth the risk. I'd rather pay a little bit more and go get one of the real top 10 quarterbacks. That's just me though.
Right, because I a couple things about Lance. Number one, the range of outcomes is gigantic. I mean, because Brock Purdy, great job this year, has done fantastic. He's won every game that he's started, all that good stuff. But we're all looking at the same guy, and we're looking at him, and we're going, this is a guy that we still don't really know that much about. We still haven't seen defenses really adjust to him much yet. Is this guy really any good? Is, I think, a fair question for Brock Purdy, as much as it is for Trey Lance. So you've got the guy with outstanding draft capital running behind the guy with almost no draft capital. I mean, literally one pick away from having no draft capital.
Right.
And so you've got this weird dynamic of, here's the guy who's got the starting job right now. Here's the guy who's got all the draft capital. I mean, anything could happen.
Yep.
In San Francisco next year.
Is it just a matter of a quarterback battle going into next season? I feel like no matter what Purdy does, maybe if he wins a Super Bowl, he locks up. But I feel like he's always going to be on a short leash, right?
Right. I mean, I think if somebody makes San Francisco a Godfather offer or something like that for Trey Lance, they'll let him go, right? Because when you look at and this is going to come right back to the point that Theo was talking about, what did San Francisco spend? We say, well, they spent 3 firsts. Yeah, they spent 3 firsts. They spent their 12th round pick that year, which was not good enough to get to Trey Lance. So they had to upgrade it. What did they upgrade it with? They upgraded it with the 29th pick or something like that last year, and will be no worse or no better than the 28th pick this year, right? In the first round. Those are almost second-round picks. I mean, those are picks that teams constantly trade out of the first round because they're going, I don't like anybody here. I don't really care about the fifth-year option. If somebody wants to come up and get this pick, I'll gladly move back 5 picks into the second round. So if somebody offers them, like a pair of seconds for Trey Lance, if I'm San Francisco, I'm like, yeah, I'll take that.
Here's the thing. You asked it, JD, was – if Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl, you think there's a fan base, ownership group, management team, coaching staff that has the will, the balls to move off of a Super Bowl winning quarterback? I just don't think they could do it. Imagine rolling out Trey Lance week 1 with Brock Purdy standing on the sideline after winning the Super Bowl. Honestly, that's going to be a very difficult thing to do. Now, if he goes out and throws 3 picks and they lose unceremoniously this week, changes entirely, because then they're like, see, told you. Now everybody can say, see, Purdy wasn't that good. Once he faced a good team, yada, yada, yada. You can say whatever. And none of it's true either way. It just is the way that it's going to feel, the fan base, the talking heads. People always say, well, the media doesn't pick the quarterback. Well, they do influence owners, and owners do pick what the fuck happens. So, at the end of the day, I think owners are going to go a little bit with the way of the wind.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring up the playoffs. It's just crazy because the guy could win the starting job based on how he does the next 2 games. It's such it's kind of a poor process in determining your franchise quarterback. Yeah. But at the end of the day, JD brings up the competition in camp next year. I think if Purdy wins the Super Bowl, I think they're going to move Trey Lance because you'd want to give Purdy the opportunity to embrace that starting job without having the higher drafted guy behind him. And I think that they would be able to get, the kind of price tag Dan is talking about. And I think that at the end of the day, we don't know how the other teams in the NFL graded Trey Lance 2 years ago, in terms of how many teams had a top 5 QB, rating on him.
It's a good point.
So somebody else might really, really love him, and be very aggressive getting him. So it's just wild to me. In terms of if I'm a super flex team, Andrew and I kind of talked about some price tags. So take it to like an FFPC, super flex or triflex. Dan, if what would you be willing to move for Trey Lance?
I don't even know.
By the way, while you think of that, the chat is undefeated. They're definitely throwing out some good ones. Is this not the team that moved off the quarterback that got him to the Super Bowl and Nick Foles won a Super Bowl, then back to the bench? They're right actually in some ways, adding some texture to this. That once there's some separation, some distance from this season, things will change. The dialogue will change. So in a lot of ways, that's actually a positive thing. The one thing too with Trey Lance is he's going to get another chance. We know that. So in that way, he's safe to some degree still, but it's just really getting weird. That's all I'd say. So for me, it's just there's a question as to whether or not he's good, but he will get another chance. That's for sure.
Yes, and also if you're bringing up the hanging sword of Damocles in the chat, you are absolutely going on the screen. That's just guaranteed. So.
So let's do a quick before we move to the next position here. Let's do a quick Trey Lance or Mac Jones in Dynasty.
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance all day.
Trey Lance or Kenny Pickett?
Trey Lance.
Lance.
I think I'd go Lance, but I like Pickett a lot more than I like Jones right now.
Trey Lance or Deshaun Watson?
Watson.
All right, so he's kind of in that. Kirk Cousins?
I'd probably go Cousins, but you're getting pretty close there. It would kind of depend on, like if I had 2 good starters I felt like I could count on, I might trade off Cousins for that, that chance at the
bingo.
The
That's right.
brass ring there.
That's a need base. That's right.
Yes.
Yep.
Team specific.
If I needed a QB2 and I was like, man, this team is stacked, I'd be happy to trade Lance for Cousins and secure myself, a solid QB2, next year, as opposed to risking it all with Lance and not having a plan. But so it's definitely team dependent. They're right there together. I agree.
Yep.
I'll give you one more, guys. I'll take it to since we're all Dynasty.
This is the one.
Rookie mind. This is gonna. Will Levis or Trey Lance? Not
Trey
knowing
Lance.
Who's going to draft.
Trey Lance.
Okay?
How about this is the best one? This is the one I thought you were going to do. Daniel Jones or Trey Lance?
Ooh, Damien.
I'm gonna go Danny Dimes on that because I think you're getting another QB1 year out of Danny Dimes next year, maybe 2.
There it is. Look at see Daniel Jones. Welcome to the program.
As long as Dable's got him, he's going to be a top 15 QB.
Man, I think I got to go Danny Jones there just because he's, like that could be the ceiling for Trey Lance, right? It's possible Trey Lance has a higher ceiling, but it's also very possible that is the ceiling.
Yep.
So I'll take the guy who's actually shown that he can be, startable, have some big games, whatever.
Tua to answer the question, I take Tua.
Yeah. Tua makes me nervous, but I mean, you gotta go
so nervous, so nervous.
Like, what do you do if you're Miami? I don't even forget fantasy. Know,
nope,
that's a tough one. So Scott, why don't you kick off? My favorite position. I know a lot of us here love this position just because it fluctuates so much. It makes fantasy fun. And this guy, we were, Goat District was hot on this guy going into last season. Why don't you kick it off, man?
Are we talking running backs?
Yes.
We're talking running back.
Rhamondre Stevenson. I
Stevenson.
love myself some Mondre. So, yeah, Rhamondre Stevenson. What are you guys doing with Rhamondre going into the year?
I think he's a hold.
Yeah.
Because I think that the dynasty marketplace does not catch up to the value that he brought to the table. I think you have a lot of people thinking that, this is a one-off where Bill Belichick's going to go back to his, evil old ways and screw us. But he used Rhamondre more than he ever used any other running back. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on that. You're a Patriots fan, but fantasy usage-wise, the percentage of carries and the percentage of targets, no one has done this. So I think that they recognize that they have an actual offensive weapon where, and you can say that it fell right for him with Damien Harris's injury. And I think there's an argument to that. But at the end of the day, they had other backs there and they certainly didn't work them in like a lot of people, projected. So I think Rhamondre Stevenson finished as an RB12, the top 12 RB this year in his second season. He
was RB10 points per game.
RB10, and he's in his second season. So he was the only first or second year player in the entire NFL to finish as an RB1, which is just crazy. And I think that the looking at their roster, they are projected to be active. They're one of the teams for in the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes. They're going to add some skill position players, but at the end of the day, they're not going to get away from this. Maybe he regresses slightly, but I think you're looking at a top 18 running back, and I don't think you're getting a high rookie draft pick for Rhamondre Stevenson because people are scared off on the situation and also his draft capital. So I think to me, he's a hold.
I'll ask you guys a question. If you know it, you can answer it. But where do you think Rhamondre Stevenson finished in 2022 in running back targets?
I don't know, but
he was up there. He had like 85 targets. I'm not sure where that finished.
Yeah, he almost had 70 receptions. 70 receptions, man.
That was one of the things I was looking at earlier today. I was like, man, he had a crap ton of targets.
He was third. Eckler, CMC, Rhamondre. And for a guy that size to be able to command those types of targets, I mean, I know that games started isn't everything, but he was only listed as starting 7 games too. I mean, I know that, again, it's kind of nonsense, but you get my drift. In other words, like he's kind of like, I mean, he ran for 1,000 yards and was third in the league in targets. That's tough to do. I mean, this kid is a real football player, dual threat. He might be a buy. I don't know what's going to happen in New England, but I think there's going to be some changes, and those changes would hopefully make the team a better offense. As it's going to be hard to be a more basic offense. So, if they can maybe make a move for DeAndre Hopkins and Bill O'Brien, the whole thing, that'd be kind of ironic if a team that's, sort of OC'd by Bill O'Brien trades for DeAndre Hopkins. That would be a novel idea. But yeah, he may be a buy. He's certainly not a sell because you're right. The market isn't caught up to him exactly. And I don't know that he's, netting you, a high-end RB1 return at all. And that's what he was. So.
Right. Yeah, so a couple things on there. First, 89 targets is what it was, not 85.
Yep.
He only had 6 touchdowns, which is pretty low for a New England Patriots lead running back.
Yep.
And then the other thing is Bill O'Brien, when he was with Houston, he was pretty much he wanted to find a running back to ride. And we all talk about Bellatrix, but really a lot of that was the Josh McDaniels offense, right? When Bill O'Brien, this is one of the things I have written down that I need to look up. Like what was Bill O'Brien doing with the offense when he was with New England before? Was he riding one running back? Do you remember, Scott? I don't want to put you on the spot or anything.
No, it's fine. I actually am ready to answer that question because you look back, it was like they rode certain guys like Corey Dillon for years with Belichick, And so I think it's just a matter of like when you have a guy like James White and, Kevin Falk and, certain guys who are just that guy, and then you go to fast forward to this year and Damien Harris was sort of the opposite of James White. In other words, he was such a hammer. They're like, well, he's the hammer, and that's all he was. But, in other words, they used James White as well. He's only a pass catcher and Kevin Falk only a pass catcher. So they used him that way. But I think when they have a multifaceted back, they use him as such, and that's what Rhamondre is. So unless there's someone brought in who offers, a tremendous amount of competition, which I suppose is possible, I see him as kind of being the bell cow there with, guys that spell him, both in the pass and a Damien Harris type. But, he'll be the sort of veteran in the locker room and has done it, performed really well, 5 yards a carry, as you guys point out, 75% catch rate on 88, 89 targets. Yeah, wheels up.
He's the guy then in best ball. If you didn't smash RB early, he's a great kind of last guy in that tier that you pick up as your RB1. And I mean, the 69 catches, guys, 89 targets, that's pure money. You see an ascending offense. They're just getting settled in. They're going to bring someone decent to run that offense, hopefully. And they're going to add weapons. Just opens it up for Rhamondre. I don't think you put a guy like this back in the cage. There's guys that maybe play between the 20s and don't get those the goal line touches, that kind of thing. He was RB15, I think, with regards to red zone touches. So he's getting action enough, and he's producing. He's efficient, 5 yards per carry. He crushed it this year, man. Like, if you grabbed him, and we all had a bunch of them. If you grabbed him where he was going into the season, you definitely got your money's worth. And I think he's still value right now. I don't know if that lasts the whole offseason, though.
True.
Yep, definitely.
The only place, sorry, Theo, the only place I see his value dipping is if you do see a New England Patriots draft a running back or make a move for, a significant veteran to come into the roster.
And that wouldn't make sense, but it's possible.
Right? They could just have Kevin Harris as their backup to him, and he gains.
They have enough guys there. They drafted 2 just last year.
Pierre Strong
and Harris as the 2 and the 3 is not out of the question. So
shout out to the chat 1912.
Shout out to 1912 as always. Another guy who disappointed last year in terms of, especially in redraft, he was a guy that was going right around that 1-2 turn, high second round pick, DeAndre Swift. We've had some issues with DeAndre Swift in terms of missing some games. Not too many this year, but he missed some. Averaged 13.5 points per game. He averaged, this is off of a 16.2 points per game in his sophomore year, and rookie season he was 14.6 points per game. Where are we at with DeAndre Swift? Do we need to temper our expectations for him ever being like a truly elite running back? Is this something you'd want to cash out on, or do you want to see an improvement? Dan, maybe start with this one.
This is the final year of his contract, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so this is his 4th year?
Yep.
Okay. So, for whatever reason, Detroit has not wanted to give him the load. And, I'm not sure how much, does he have the skill to be a top 6 running back in the NFL? I think he does. So you can value him in one sense in that way, but in the other sense, I mean, you've got to kind of bring it down to points scored. And I'm not sure that he's going to get any better of an opportunity this coming year. I would not be at all surprised to see the Detroit re-sign Jamal Williams. I mean, the guy is a huge team leader. I mean, he's a gigantic part of the chemistry that was going on with that team, right? Those are the kind of guys.
Don't fool you, Dan. I got that dog in me.
Right? But those are the kind of guys that teams tend not to let go of because you're not going to have to pay Jamal Williams $10 million. Nobody's paying him $10 million. You probably have to pay him, $3-4 million, something like that. And it's an easy price to swallow for somebody who's going to add that much to your team chemistry. And, obviously, Jamal Williams is not going to score 15 touchdowns again or any of that. Some of that's probably going to equal out.
20.
Yes, 20. Swift was hurt. All that was going on. So you can say, well, things are going to even out. But I still think you're looking at Swift as being, in Detroit as barely, like he might make a back-end RB1. Maybe. Thoughts?
Go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a buyer on DeAndre Swift. I think he was an elite prospect, and for that reason, I'm willing to buy in. You look at his by the way, Jamal Williams made $3 million last year, and I think they will bring him back because I think that's all it takes to bring him back. They're used to paying him. It's not like he has to take a pay cut or they have to pay up now or whatever. I think he just slides right back in. I think they're just like, yep, okay, just let's do it again. Come on back, because he does offer tremendous real football value. And the value that DeAndre Swift offers is there too, because he's been explosive when he's been playing. I mean, he averaged 5.5 yards a carry this last year. He's, sneaky, but he's had 57, 78, and 70 targets, while not playing more than 13 or 14 games a season. So, if he can stay healthy, which, that's been some people's middle name, but, if he can stay healthy, you're talking close to 100 targets potentially, and, touchdown upside in an ascending offense where maybe they will give him a little bit more. You sort of saw it too, right? Like when he was getting healthier, he'd get a little bit more run, but when he wasn't healthy, they kind of just would put him in there for a play or two. It just was kind of weird. He's a superior talent, and for that reason, I'd be looking to buy. He's still young, and he's probably going to get a contract. I mean, you mentioned this is his last year, and then he's unrestricted. When he hits free agency, I would imagine someone's going to really like him. So it's a good time to buy low, I think.
Yeah,
So sorry, Theo, just a few things to add. I actually traded for Swift. I sent Devontae Smith right when the season ended. This is a total tear apart roster. I just like the value. If you look at his game log, anytime he's had double digit carries, he's been a top 4 running back. Top 3 twice, top 4 the other weeks. He had 8 touchdown guys this year. We're talking like he's not getting any touchdowns. Yeah, he's not getting a lot of red zone or goal line work, definitely with Jamal there. But you got to think that definitely the injuries played a factor. Everything that Scott talked about with regards to the amount of reception targets he's getting. He was an RB 15 this year, guys. Top 15 points per game at running back with the limited. He's played the most 14 games this year. He played 13 the previous 2 years. So you give this guy a full load. Whether it's on a new roster in 2024 or Jamal is gone and they really let him kind of run with it, I think the sky's the limit with this guy. I think he's a top 5 ceiling with Swift, and I think you're getting him at a good price right now.
Hey JD,
Yes, sir.
you mentioned you traded for him. I'll give you my trade. I traded for him early November in 2022. I traded I got DeAndre Swift on a team that's loaded. I gave up. You talk about the 3-for-1 type of thing. Michael Gallup, Chuba Hubbard, Malik Willis, and a 24 first.
Damn.
Oh, wow.
You could be arrested for
Nice.
that trade.
Yeah,
I
I
should-
think that's-
Yeah.
Hey, offered and accepted.
Here's the
Wow.
first 2 years away and a bunch of garbage.
Yes, let's go,
Yeah.
baby.
I
Gotta love it. But
you could pivot a number of ways to get DeAndre Swift. I think
Yeah.
it's a fine time to do it. I think that you could get him for some of these running backs that are past the age apex as a great way to make your roster younger.
Yep.
JD moved up. That's a tough one for me because I love Devonta Smith so much.
Me too.
But I think the general idea that it's easier for you to replace a wide receiver than it is a potential RB1. I think there's a bunch of pivots you could do to get DeAndre Swift right now. Dan, what were you going to say?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, I think Swift is one of those guys that if you're going to get him off his current owner, you can try going in at value, but more than likely you're going to have to pay more than what he was worth this past year to a team, just because they're going to see the same things we're talking about.
Yes.
So, his owner's probably still pretty high on him.
That particular owner drafted him in a startup draft and hasn't, he hasn't done anything for him. I mean, you think about it.
It's like dead weight.
It's like, man, let me just shift it up here. Let's just do something. And, generally speaking, if that owner is at all with it, they're going to shop for a better offer than what I was able to get. But that's besides the point. The point is that they're eager to get off him. And, especially when people aren't buying, it's funny. People always say, oh, should I sell this player? And it's like, sometimes you can think, oh, yeah, well, I'll sell. Is there anybody even buying at all? Right. I mean, that's the whole thing with a league economy is that oftentimes you can say, you can put someone on the trade block, like a good player, and get 0 offers in leagues. We've all done it. We've all seen it. I don't care how active the league is. Sometimes you just look at it and go, yeah, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? You yourself are looking at it like, I'm not playing that game for that player. I just don't want to buy. And so sometimes it's not just whether or not you do or don't want to buy. Do or don't want to sell. It's like nobody's willing to buy. So, when there's a player like that in another league, that you're trying to sell, you go into the other league and like buy him, because that manager is also having a hard time selling that player, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
So Jax, I'm just gonna put this out there just because we're at we just passed the hour mark. I know you.
Oh my God.
So I'm putting it out there. Whenever you want to run, just let us know. We'll walk you out. We can keep going just to finish off.
I'll just let you know if my wife brings in the divorce papers, and I'll be I'll just scram at that point.
The next one we can combine into a double question, because I think there's some crossover there. Damian Pierce and Tyler Allgiere both ran for 900.
Oh, you're not going to let me walk Tyler Allgiere in properly? Come on, man.
But as a dynasty, in terms of dynasty, there's some similarities, because they're both day 3 picks. They both ran for more than 950 yards. Tyler Allgiere ends up going over 1,000. Damian Pierce was very close to 1,000. Are you looking to cash out? We can take a step back too. We can look at a profile where a guy, does this and comes out and produces year 1, but doesn't have that Teflon pedigree. Are you looking to cash out for a guy like that? JD, I know you're an Allgiere fan. What way would you be approaching this?
So I was never I'm running backs on sketchy offenses are first of all, a caution sign. The thing I like about Allgiere especially versus Damien Pierce, you want to bring them up together, is one guy shined really well early in the season, and one guy did it at the end. And there's nothing I like better this time of year than guys that shined, especially the last 4 or 5 games of the season. And dude, he crushed it. Like Allgiere crushed it. The last 4 games, at least 17 carries, between 17 and 24 carries. He averaged 17 PPR points per game. RB1 3 out of the 4 games, guys. He put over 117 yards in 3 out of the 4 games. The lowest mark was 95 yards. I don't care what team you're on, what team you're playing against. It's the NFL. That's some legit magic right there from a rookie that came out of the 5th round on a shaky offense. So you see, you hope this offense ascends next year. I don't see. Okay, they'll probably bring in a guy. There's another guy in this equation. But I think Allgiere showed enough, whereas Damien Pierce kind of faded a bit. And I have a lot of questions about the Houston offense, 2023. I only go a year at a time at running back, Theo, in Dynasty.
I'm happy to jump in.
Yeah,
because for me, it's like, while I don't disagree with anything that JD just said, I almost find a lot of the player analysis to be irrelevant, because at this particular point, all I'm looking at is 5th round, and that's all I need to know. And I love Allgiere. I actually think, I was one of the guys who was saying, be careful of James Robinson. They're going to draft a running back. And everybody's like, no, they're not. James Robinson is good. I said, I didn't say James Robinson wasn't good. I said, they're going to draft a running back. And everybody's like, why would they? I'm like, because that's what teams do. This is what happens. This happens all the time. This isn't like I don't like player X. This is I don't like player X situation. And Damien Pierce and Tyler Allgiere both have the same problem. And that problem is that it's very likely that they're going to bring in a running back with either more contract money or more draft capital. And that's terrifying, because at that moment, they become not the starter necessarily, or in a timeshare at best, or they have to fend off a player. They have to so far outperform the player, i.e. James Robinson to ETN, that it's just not going to happen. And so these are terrifying. Of course, James Robinson's got the ETN foot injury, out, all this, right? But look, at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen is that there's going to be competition, and it's going to look a whole lot different next year. I actually think Pierce has a better chance of holding off than Allgiere. That's just my opinion, but I'd be terrified of both. But I also think you can get more for Pierce than Allgiere. I'd be selling them both if I could, because they're likely, I just think that it's very, very likely that these running backs are not going to be worth as much in a year as they are today.
The only rebuttal, quick, Theo, is that you're not buying them as an RB1. The price is so low that you're not expecting, and with the nature of the position, if they can give you those starts 4 or 5 a year where they're giving you RB1 production, I mean,
can't you sell them? Can't you sell them for a second round pick?
I don't think selling a running back at any time is a bad idea for the right price.
No, but I mean, don't you think that that's a reasonable? I mean, and then Theo, we just did our show together. My show, you were on my show today. We talked about all the second round running backs. There's going to be, Izzy is going to be there, or Kendre Miller, or someone's going to be there that's probably going to get more draft capital and have a better shot at at a starting role in the NFL, probably on the same damn team as these guys come September. And so you can turn Allgiere and Pierce into 2 seconds. I'd do it in a snap.
And also, totally. You have the massive number of free agents.
Bingo.
What having this many free agents is not only gonna create more competition, but it's gonna create some guys taking a cheap contract in order to get the opportunity. I think it's the wrong offseason in general to hold, the Damian Pierces and the Tyler Allgieres. I really like Allgiere. If his situation like he doesn't have the competition.
Oh, which RB situation can you not say that about right now, Theo?
Right, but that's the point.
That's the point. Actually, I agree with that.
The point is, I'd rather be invested in the lower price ones if they have the same possible outcome than the guys you're highly invested in.
Well, I do think that you can get. I do think that like a guy like Damian Pierce, if you asked 11, there's 11 other managers in your league, there might be a polarizing difference of opinions on a guy like Pierce and even an Allgiere.
Where you can get an overpay?
And also I used Allgiere in like a 2-for-1 type trade this week where I traded and I got, I think I stole this one, but I traded Allgiere and Stephon Diggs to get Ben Walker. And people are like the thing is, it doesn't matter what they're worth. It's, does somebody view them as an RB2 in Dynasty? And I think there's certain people that view Damian Pierce and Tyler Allgiere as RB2s right now based on their raw stats rookie year. But Scott brings up all these guys. And I'll say this to you, JD. We were both on Michael Carter this time last year as a guy we really liked for year 2. Michael Carter looked like the kind of guy who could be an RB2 this year, and he got Breece Hall. Yep. And it just, like Dan, Zach Stacy, Jordan Howard. It happens all the time where we view these guys as an RB2, but their team is willing to throw $3 million at Leonard Fournette and just have him come in the building. And, these kind of guys are, and so it's the massive amount of free agents, the massive amount of rookies. Like, if I don't feel comfortable about a guy, I'm willing to move him.
I think they are nice pieces to use, like you did, to tag it up with something, a pick or another more significant piece to upgrade, like we're talking about, to consolidate. I think they are great pieces because, like we said, at the nature of the position in this time of year, I'm thinking like kind of best ball, right? Like that, my brain's in best ball right now. So I'm thinking like lower rounds, where can I get that production where I can get a RB1 ceiling, you know what I mean, at that price? That's kind of how my brain's working. So you're right. I think as trade bait, those are 2 perfect pieces.
It's possible that one of those 2 guys, or either of those 2 guys, or both of those guys, survive and end up being a starting running back. But I would put that as less likely, and more likely that they're either eviscerated, which is very likely, or at least competition is brought in where they are mitigated. And so I think of those 3 things, I think the least likely is that they just survive and like they're the RB1 on their team next year. I think that's very unlikely for those types of players. And so for that reason, and I love 1912 brought it up. He's like, you can probably find the guy who will pay you a future first, not this year. Future first. Oh my gosh. No, don't. It's 2024. It's way in the future. And then, that's Trey.
Plus, it's going to be the 112 anyway. I mean,
of course it is, buddy.
It's going to be the 112. Yeah.
It's not going to be Caleb Williams or Travion.
2024 is going to be the greatest class ever.
Marvin Harrison. It's going to be a great class.
Yeah. So just to kind of put a bow on the running backs, I think, a great exercise I do every year is I just kind of go through and I list off all the running backs that are going to be free agents. I look at all the running backs that are coming in on a new draft class, and then I look at all the running backs who are, still kind of staying with their team or whatever. And I just try to assign a number 1 through 10. What is the likelihood that this player is going to have the same opportunity next year that they had this past year? You know, and you look at a guy like Allgiere, and that number for me, you know, 1 to 10, 10 being certainly going to have that role, 1 being never going to have that role. He's
For
like
sure.
a 2,
Yeah.
you know, or a 3. Pierce might be a 4.5 or a 5, something like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you go through and you start putting numbers on them like that, it starts to bring it into, you know, make sense a little bit.
So why don't we do this just due to time here? Why don't we, Theo, and why don't we just do the 2? We have 2 tight ends that we want to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
Why don't we just finish off with those, and we'll promise the audience the next one we do, the next Dynasty trade check we do, is going to be centered around wide receivers.
We could do an all wide receivers game.
Exactly.
Yes.
Beautiful. All right, let's do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if
And-
we lost Jax. Oh,
No, he's coming back. He's
Awesome.
He
Awesome.
just had to disappear for a quick second.
who wants to? Who?
He wanted to talk on one specific tight end, but there was one that we really have to talk about because last year was the most, you know, talked about name in all of Dynasty, and he's going to be one of the more talked about guys, you know, this summer as well, just based on his profile and, you know, last season being such a dud. Kyle Pitts, they're still seeing big deals with Kyle Pitts. You know, you've seen them in multiple leagues. You see, you know, if you're a Kyle Pitts manager, you're still getting offers. Today, I was offered in an FFPC 750. I turned it down pretty quickly, but I was offered Pitts and Cortland Sutton for TJ Hawkinson and Michael Pittman. So last year, I think I probably would have made that trade. This year, I'm turning that trade down.
Last year, Theo, you would have smashed that trade and
bragging
been
about that.
dancing in
But
the streets.
what if you could turn Hawkinson into Pitts and like a first, or like Pitts and like something really nice, juicy?
No one's doing that. I still think like I don't think anybody's going to trade you a first and Pitts for
Maybe not a first. First is a little extreme, but
you could get a like, I don't know. For me, it's team specific. If a team is a contender this year, like this team, I won it last year, and I think I'll be right up there again this year. I feel more confident in Hawkinson this year. I'm all over him. Hawkinson is my tight end 2 in redraft, and I think in Dynasty, some people are still going to have him behind Pitts, but it's closer this year than it was last year in terms of their Dynasty value. Forget how they perform. Just looking at them in terms of actual, you know, commodities in Dynasty, Pitts is interesting. I just don't know. Like, I've talked to a couple of Dynasty players I really respect outside of the GOAT district, and names to remain nameless. And it's kind of like, are we at a point where this is the last time you could get out for Pitts for a huge offer? Or are you more worried about him having a massive season and gaining back that value? It's like, what's the more likely outcome, that this is the cash out year, or that he's going to gain value with some monster year that we expected last year? It's tough. It's really tough. Dan,
Yeah,
I know you have some strong opinions.
You know, with Pitts, I mean, you know, there's a very real possibility that he's, you know, the next Eric Ebron, basically. You know, which is, I know, a name that makes Theo cringe, but
It's horrible. It's like a knife in the back.
you know, but that's, you know, that's a real possibility. I mean, Ebron came out and everybody was like all over him. You know, he's a guy who had all kind. You know, he had everything you want. He had the high draft capital. He had all of it. He was young. And, you know, he just never really turned into much. I mean, he did have.
But he had that 1 year in Pittsburgh.
The 1 year in Pittsburgh where he caught, you know, 11 billion touchdowns, and
That's the real number too.
it is, and you know, but that's all he's done. And then the thing is after that year in Pittsburgh, still nobody wanted him. Not even really Pittsburgh. They're like, oh yeah, I guess we'll take you back, but they never really did anything with him. They're like, yeah, okay, well, it was. You know, it wasn't. Was it Pittsburgh or was it Indy? It was Indy, I think.
We went to Indy and Pittsburgh, but I think he had like a little stint
but
there.
Anyway, you know, but he's faded out of the league already. You know, and I don't think Ebron's 27 years old right now, 28 maybe. I don't think he's any older than that.
And this is why my approach to the position, especially in tight end premium, these guys are important. I mean, we see kind of like these top end quarterbacks now, these top end tight ends. When you have Kelsey, Kittle, you can compete, right? When you have Andrews, you can really compete. So, total. Sorry, man. I just got a message and it totally.
Well, I'll tell you. We
Yeah,
talking
I'll
about
come
Pitts
back.
here? We talking about Pitts?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, here's the thing. I can't imagine a world where Pitts isn't going to be good. Like, that's hard for me to imagine. I don't see the thing being the Eric Ebron or the O.J. Howard or something like that. I mean, I suppose it's still possible. It really, really is. But he was so good his rookie year, and he's such a phenom. The thing that actually surprised me the most this past year was that Arthur Smith couldn't figure out how to get the most out of him. That was actually kind of surprising, that he actually was worse on a per-play basis, per-target basis. And I don't know, that was kind of shocking. So his sort of fall from grace was a little bit shocking. I do think that, they've got to get better going forward, and you got to figure out a way to use him properly. That was disconcerting. So for me, he's not the clear-cut tight end 1 in Dynasty any longer. The problem is that the clear tight end 1 is so old, it's really hard to know how to treat Travis Kelce, because he is the tight end 1 in Dynasty. I mean, but he's year by year.
Right.
But whatever year you have Travis Kelce is,
he's the 101. He's the 101 football player. Period.
It's unbelievable. Look, he's 2 years the MVP of fantasy football. Like, you know what I mean? 2 years in a row. Like, every year I do a thing where we pick the MVP and all this sort of thing. And I'm not talking about the MVP of the league. I'm talking about MVP of fantasy football. And you guys know it because you guys play in a lot of these FFPC leagues. Like, what percentage of championship teams were rostering Travis Kelce? It's a very high number, and he might be the number 1 player on championship rosters across Dynasty leagues. And that tells you all you need to know about how valuable he is. But the problem was everybody conflated Travis Kelce with what Kyle Pitts was going to be. And that's just not how it works. Just because, and I agree with this, that Kyle Pitts is the best tight end prospect ever, that doesn't mean he's going to be the most productive
prospect.
Yes.
Prospect is the key, and that's what I was getting at. Sorry, guys, the wife's giving me like an update on a trip we're going on. But that's the key word, is the prospect. Is she's giving me like updates on the wave size. We're going to Portugal to watch like big wave surfing, so she's giving me these. I thought it was an emergency going on. But anyways, what I was going to say, Theo, and I've said it on the show a million times, I'd rather pay for the proven tight end. The guy knows his stud, and I buy Kittles. I buy Kelsey's. I have a team right now with Waller, Kelsey, Kittle, and I bought Kelsey and Kittle this year, I think, at a discount. They're proven. Why am I going to sit there and wait for Pitts and Ebron and all these Adonis guys that go to to the combine looking like athletic freaks, getting everybody boners in fantasy land, and you're sitting there with the proven piece, the proven magic to win you your league? Why are you going to sit there, man? Take the proven guy. I'd rather pay up and get the guy who I know can do it, as opposed to sitting there and waiting for that upside, as Nate Pilmer likes to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's league specific whether we're looking at him as a buy or a sell, because I do think you might find some people where you could get a decent price for him, but I think most of the people that have Kyle Pitts are not going to sell low.
Right.
And I think that's so he becomes kind of
you don't want to buy him if he's not low anyways, right, Theo? Like if the guy wants full pop for him, I don't really want to buy him.
I think that's what he's saying, and I've been scouring leagues for Pitts, and he's not. I missed one where he kind of went cheap, and I actually made an offer and didn't win somehow. What kind of offers? What kind of offers? Just to give a. I'll look it up while you guys keep talking.
Nice.
All right.
We made a trade. So Noah, not Riddell, Noah Blum in our Hardway League. We made a trade on a team that we split in a triflex. The only Kyle Pitts share that I sold, I had one other Kyle Pitts share that I traded, but it was like the haul was so big that anybody would have made it, even if he would have had a tight end 2 overall season. It still would have been a good trade. But the only mid-season trade where I traded a Pitts was we got Chris Godwin, we got Greg Dulcich, and we had a 2023 second rounder in a super flex. And I think there was some other small piece on top. So we got overpaid, not really overpaid, I think that was about like as low as I would have gone.
No, it's a perfect time to buy those guys too.
We were chasing a lot of money in that league, and we ended up. I think we had an injury that knocked us out, but our team was very strong, and it was a chance to kind of push us over the top. And we were, we had, Pitts was done for the year at that point.
Nice.
So I don't know. It's a tough one to gauge, especially when we talk about tight end premium. There's a lot of places where you're just not going to get them cheap. I don't know. I'm not looking to sell this offseason, but if somebody pays me some massive amount, then I'm absolutely considering it.
Yeah, absolutely. And nice post from Open 24 Hours. Sold Pitts in my late first for Kelsey late in the year. No regrets. I think that makes sense. I mean, if you're going for a title, why wouldn't you? I mean, the only like fair way to play in a league with Travis Kelce is anytime a team is playing the Travis Kelce team, they should get 2 tight ends.
Yeah.
So I just to go back to a Kelce trade, I sent the first and a second, and I got Geno Smith and Kelce in tight end premium.
Jeez, that's
FFPC.
cheap.
I mean, why not? I already had Kittle and Waller. I mean, I've got the 3 best tight ends.
No, that's cheap. I sold Kelce this year at the deadline, no deadline. It was in the playoffs, so I sold him to a guy going for the chip, and I sold Kelce for Mark Andrews in a 25 first.
Yeah, that's all right.
So I felt good about it. Yeah, just sort of, that felt good. And then the trade I missed out on, and I don't know if I would have paid this, but it was Pitts for Will Dissly was in there for some reason for 223 first. They ended up being the 110 and 111. They were 2 playoff teams. So, I see the Pitts for a 23 110. It's like, 2 of them in that case. 2 first rounders. So I guess you'd take Pitts over the 23 110, or would you guys?
Hold on, I'm looking here. It's the
I would take Pitts. Yeah, I think 23
over the 110. You said the 110.
Yeah, I'm taking Pitts.
Well, they're asking. Somebody was asking about Pitts or Mayers, right? That's about the back end of the first round right now.
Yeah,
I'll take Pitts.
I'm taking Pitts over Mayer.
And then what about Pitts over to like the 110 and the 111 together?
I mean, you could be looking at a Mayer and then pick your poison there. I still am probably leaning Pitts in that situation.
It gets a whole lot closer at that point, doesn't it?
Yeah, that gets a little
sure
bit
is.
You have more outs in that trade.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, you got 2 bites on the apple there for sure. I know we're going to hit Darren Waller, so I just wanted to throw this up there because I think this trade.
No, I think that's perfect. I like this.
Great transition over. But what do you guys think about Waller? I mean, for me, just to answer this question, I'm going to take Waller over Knox plus the 403 and 405.
Yeah. This is not close for me. I don't know why I'm seeing Waller outside the top 10, 12 tight ends. I don't understand it at all. He was hurt. He didn't play. He had a terrible hamstring injury. Every time he's played, I know he's 30 or whatever, 31 now, maybe getting to 32. But, if he can play, he's going to be dominant. You get Tom Brady in there next year with Gronk. It's going to be the 2 tight end set again. No, I don't know. I just think that, the upside is what I'm always looking for. And unless I'm getting one of the – right now it's like Hawkinson, Goddard, Pitts, Andrews, Kittle – I'm probably forgetting someone, but of course, Kelce. Outside of those guys, you start getting into the Freiermuths and the Komets and whatnot. I want Waller over all those guys, just because I know Freiermuth's good. I know people are going to be like, "What, Freiermuth?" Waller is a league-winning potential. Freiermuth is great. He's good. He's going to be solid. Schultz, solid. I understand these guys are good, but I want Waller, and I want what he offers me. And if I can get him for Knox and that. A couple of fourths, absolutely. Right now I think Waller is a buy because of his value. You don't have to give up Freiermuth to get Waller. You can give up Knox and 2 fourths. Let's do it.
See, he's similar to I talked about Lamar Jackson. Like if you don't have one of the top three guys, Waller's. We talk about receivers that have been in the top 12 before, and they're more likely to be back in the top 12 at the receiver position if they've been there. It's the same with tight end, right? It's a similar position. He's given you top 2. Top 5, top 6 seasons in the past. He's dealt with injuries. I think Waller to me is I would actually rather downgrade to Waller and
Right.
sell maybe a bigger piece as opposed to, I mean, here it's a 10 team, right? So if you have Knox in those pieces and you could put the pylons together and ship them out for an actual Waller,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's magic, right? That's dynasty magic right there. But I think Waller right now is a clear buy, and use the uncertainty of the quarterback not being there right now to buy before Rodgers or whoever ends up there.
I think that the only apprehension I would have with Waller is I would want to be strong, pretty decently strong at tight end 2. If he was my tight end 1 because of the time he's missed, and I think some of the red flags. But yeah, we certainly talk about like a guy that when he's on the field can give us like a week winning upside, and Waller's still that. And I think there's a couple of outs in Vegas. I mean, you brought up the quarterback upgrade where if it's Brady. There's a couple of outs there in Vegas where he could pay off pretty big, especially where he's going as a low end tight end 1.
Yeah, and he could be traded too. I mean, he's got a fairly tradable contract. They're talking about maybe moving him. So if somebody's going to trade for him, you would think that they would be trading for him to use him. And just to kind of bring things all the way back to the beginning of the show, Waller's one of those players I think is a perfect example of what Randy was talking about. That dynasty players, at this time of year, a lot of times rather than going for the title, they like to play around with the rookie picks or whatever. It's kind of like seeing the cute girls at the bar, man. Everybody likes to talk to the cute girls, but you know what? Waller is maybe the girl that you want to go home with in this instance if you're shooting for a title. Instead of worrying about, what's going on with the 109, 110, 111, whatever, if you can move any one of those picks for a Waller, why wouldn't you?
I don't think it costs quite that much, Dan, at this point. I think that
no.
Yeah,
he's over 30, man. He's over 30. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think he's cheap. And what the heck was I going to say? Oh, you had mentioned, Theo, if you're strong at tight end 2. Who's strong at tight end 2? What's that?
Yeah, especially at tight end premiums.
I was like,
I don't want to be.
What is the definition of
tight end 2?
like?
I don't want to have Waller and have Foster Moreau as my tight end.
I know I'm only teasing, but it's like I was playing around with someone on the pod the other day, and we were talking like from like tight end 10 in Dynasty to tight end 25. Tight end 25 is like Tyler Higbee in Dynasty, and it's like Tyler Higbee or Cole Kmet next year. Who's going to score more points? It's like there's the answer. It's who. Tight end 25 and tight end 10. Tight end 10 is like Cole Kmet. Tight end 25 is Tyler Higbee. It's a straight coin flip as to who's going to score more points in 2023.
Jax Falcone, we're at $130, man, and we could literally we didn't even touch receiver while you were gone. We told the audience we're going to do a show.
Go rapid fire on the receiver.
We'll focus. We'll do a show specifically on receivers.
We'll do. But you guys want to bang them? Let's bang them out quick. Let's just do a rapid fire.
Buy, sell.
Okay, so we go rapid fire. George.
All right, let's do it.
George Pickens.
Buy. I mean, if we're just going to say buy or sell, I'm buying on.
Sell.
You're selling?
Sell.
Hold.
Wow, don't.
Okay. We'll elaborate more. Anybody want to do it? We'll get Scott. Your quick opinion on Pickens.
It's the old Matthew Berry. I don't hate players. I hate ADPs. So I think just that if I look at his value, I think he's fine. I just think that it's an outside shot. That he's going to be DeAndre Hopkins, right? I mean, I just think he's probably a little bit more of a 2 out there, and he's being viewed by the dynasty community as a guy who can elevate to a wide receiver 1, and that's where he's valued. So at that value, I'm a sell.
Calvin Ridley, buy, sell, or hold? Dan.
Sell.
I think in general, I'm a buy.
I think generally sell. It depends on price, but I just think being out so long, and I think this is probably Dan's answer. He probably wants to see it before he invests. I mean, I got to see it, man. A guy that's been out that long.
Yeah, for a variety of reasons too. I mean, the guy is legit turning into a head case. Somebody I don't remember who on Twitter was comparing him to Josh Gordon, and that just rings too eerily true to me.
Or like a Michael Thomas kind of,
Yeah.
I had a trade in my inbox. It was the 2. I have the 210, the 3-2, and a 23 third, likely early, 24 third. So the 210, the 3-2, 24 third, likely early for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I would hang on to Ridley for that. I mean, because I think right now is
that's a buy. I would have to buy Ridley. So you'd give it up for Ridley?
Oh, yeah, I would give that up for Ridley. Yeah. I mean, if somebody's selling him for that, then for sure. If you have Ridley on your roster, I think Shipfed is exactly right. You cannot sell Ridley yet. You need to wait until he's doing things in training camp and he's you get the one-handed catch, whatever. You want those highlight reel things going on because even if they don't happen, your price for Ridley in August is not going to be any worse than it is now. The price can only go up between now and August. What my concern is what happens in September. Does that price suddenly drop off? So I'm looking for, if I've got Ridley, I'm looking for the out somewhere along the way. I'm looking for his value to peak and then out.
We're not very good at rapid fire, but
No,
that's
Okay, so I'll give
We
you.
suck at it.
We'll do.
The people love it, though. They actually thanked me. They said, thank you, Jax, for holding on and staying out here. So you're welcome.
Kadarius Toney, guys. Kadarius Toney.
Sell.
I'll say sell as well.
Hold.
Sell.
No, I think he's a sell.
Okay, my guy Treylon Burks.
Buy. Big
Buy.
time buy. Big
Big
buy.
time buy.
Buy.
Yes.
Buy the dip.
Huge buy.
Quickly, non-superflex. What would be a pick you'd be willing to move in a regular PPR rookie league, Scott, for Treylon Burks?
Did you say non-superflex?
Non-superflex.
Okay,
Regular.
I have to do some math. Hold on. Probably, certainly anything after pick 6, I'm sure I would.
Yeah,
I would,
so 107 is getting for
Easily.
Treylon Burks. Okay.
Yeah, because you get the top three wide receivers, the big 3, maybe you can make it big 4, whatever, big 3, and then the top 2 running backs. So 5, somewhere around 6 or 7. Somewhere
So
there.
just to look at kind of where people are getting this information, the masses. I've got Dynasty trade calculator on the screen here. You're looking at about 107. So you guys nailed it. It's equal based on that one.
There you
which
go.
I prefer.
Yeah.
It's almost like I know what I'm talking about over here.
It's like your magic man. You are the magic man, Jax.
But
Wait,
I
That's all.
Oh, that's it.
All
right. Jax, remind the peeps where they can find all the goodness. Like the chat said, we appreciate you hanging with us way longer than we kind of planned this. So we always love having you on, brother.
Thanks,
guys.
man.
Make sure you are following the undroppables and especially our boy right here.
Yeah, follow me at Dino Game Theory. You can follow us at The Undroppables. If you search The Undroppables, wherever, Google, you can find our shit. You can find us on Twitter that way. And then be sure to check out this week's pod. It should be out tomorrow, probably late in the day. But we got to finish that one up too, Theo. We're mid pod right now. We're basically done. The boys know I run a little long. I'm renowned. I told my wife, I went in for a second. I go, we're running a little bit long, and it's kind of my fault. So sorry about that. But actually, it was a good show, man. Me and Theo just did a good show. That is The Undrafted. You can find it wherever podcasts are found.
Nice.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
guys.
you're on Twitter. Everybody needs to check out. Maybe you could just quickly remind your anatomy of.
Yes, that's
running
coming.
back and wide
Yeah.
receiver. That is some of the best dynasty information out there. Maybe you could quickly explain that.
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to. So the anatomy series is basically, I first got into it when it was geeks, Peter Howard and guys would say, predictive data and analytics and all this. And I felt like everybody was like, analytics is stupid. Leave us alone. We just want to watch fucking football. And I felt like there was something there, but it's really high-end shit that none of us understand. But there's probably a lot there. So I said, well, what is it really, what's really going on? And I tried to just digest it and dissolve it into what do good players share? What are some of the things that we're looking at? And so the anatomy series was that. It started 3 years ago. I have it pinned to my my Twitter profile, and I usually come out with it every February, so it's coming up pretty soon, and it's a lot of fun. Oh, look at Xavier Hutchinson. I'll have to go check him out. But, I start my process. I'm not much of a college football guy, so it helps me with my process and sort of looking at these guys and figuring out which guys are, which prospects are going to, have the characteristics of elite level players at the position in the NFL. and it's a fun exercise, and people really loved it. It's a really fun thing to look at, and so for that reason, I think people really enjoy it. It's a lot of work to kind of go through it, but it's fun as hell. So that's what it is.
Yeah, I'll retweet that for anybody watching the show right now or listening. It's just tremendous.
Yeah, it really is. That's something I have bookmarked too. That I look back on. It's like, okay, now we got all the information. We're about ready to get into rookie drafts. Let's go.
You can kind of use it. Like a lot of guys will go, how does so and so fall into this? I'm like, well, fucking look it up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard. It's why do I got to tell you? That sounds like a lot of work. But it would be a lot of work, and if someone wants to do it, they're welcome to. But to put every prospect through that and to sort of identify them. But I do it one prospect at a time. I kind of know it in my head. But a lot of guys, if you're curious, you just look up the data and say, here it is. This is how this guy fits in or does not fit in. We talked about it a little bit on the show today with Tank Dell. Is that his name? That kid is like 5'5", 155, but he's dominating. Well, he's not that small, but he's dominating.
He's like 5'10", a 5'10", 185-pound guy named Tank.
Yeah.
Kind of love
Right.
Love anybody who's 155 and named Tank, you definitely want a piece of that.
Yeah, he's so clearly the smallest guy on the field, and he's just fucking faster than everybody, and it's pretty cool. Pretty exciting prospect, but he falls out due to size, and it's like, well, how much does that matter? That's what you try and figure out.
He's at Dino Game Theory. Guys, if you're not following him, make sure you're following him and all his goodness. Theo, what do we have coming up, man? We just rocked 2 serious rookie shows. If you haven't checked them out, we had John Lobb, we had Matt Hicks, the rookie big board, like 2 guys you want to start off your rookie, travels, adventures, research with, and we kicked it off with back-to-backs. What do we have coming up, Theo?
So we're going to have some people from the Hardway draft. It's still being worked out, but we're in a very high-level best ball. Billy Muzio will be one of them, and not sure if it's just going to be us and Billy, or possibly one mystery guest. But we'll be reviewing at least maybe 15 rounds of this draft. It's been a fun one so far. I think we're all putting together some interesting builds, and we're going to talk about it.
Billy's sharp.
Yes, he is.
Very sharp. Very sharp.
Yeah, that whole draft room is sharp, and we'll dive into it. We should be the first one done because we're in the first one that started, and the Hardway one is way ahead of it. Guys, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us in the chat. If you're listening to this, make sure you check us out on YouTube, on Spotify. You can watch the shows as well. Let us know what type of players you want us to touch on in the next few times we come back with Dynasty Market Check. And tonight's been a blast, guys. Get out there, get your trades proposals. Try to send out at least 1 proposal a day per league. Get your league going. Enjoy this time of year. # always be trading. We'll check you all later.
Go district, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text. That trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Of course, I'm on the clock in Hardway while we're on the show. I got like 30 minutes left. These guys are probably cussing me right now.
Probably.
That's all right.
That's all right. It's the
That's
hard
what
way.
the clock is for. I mean, sometimes you run it.
That's right.
I mean,
this was a worthwhile detour for sure.
yeah, fuck yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt. This is
Being long-winded. Sorry.
no.
It was getting heated a bit. I like it. I like
It was
when it
good.
gets
I
heated.
thought it was fun. We didn't talk over each other, and everybody kind of got some stuff off. It was fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I just like it when you're on, Scott, because it seems like we always manage to veer off into something really cool, whatever it happens to be, and sometimes we don't even know before we start the show what it's going to be. So
Yeah, it was fun. I think the chat liked it. They were having fun.
Yeah, for sure.
The chat's lit, man. We're lucky. We have a good crowd, and like I said, dude, you're like the Dynasty philosopher. I love listening to your show because of kind of the in-depth. You talk about poker, and I think that's why I like it so much.
Yeah,
There's levels.
I wanted to play poker. Whenever I brought it up, I was like, man, I want to go play right now. I was jonesing.
Hey, dude, my trip to Portugal with the wife is poker winnings, brother. That's the whole. That's what.
Oh, that a boy, JD.
I'm like, all right, let's go back to Portugal, watch some soccer and some big wave surfing.
Where do you play? Where do you live?
Well, now it's been online just because I back in the day I used to hit the casinos. Shout out to Joe Carlton. He talks to me about his adventures to the casino. But
where do you live?
I'm near Toronto, so it's about an hour and a half to Niagara.
Yeah, we can't play, man. I'm in California. Can't fucking play poker.
So they legalized in the province I'm in. It's only Ontario approved license. So it's like MGM poker, all the big names, but they have Ontario sites that you can. It's all new to me, but
they have the live poker rooms though.
Yes.
Right? Yeah,
yes.
But you can't play online because of that. What a joke.
It's so stupid. The fact that you can't play online, it's so stupid. Yeah.
California is so weird with the gambling rules in general. How it's like the freest state on so many things, and then gambling, they're like
it'll change.
Puritans. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's so weird, man. Because I'm like, I like going to play, and I'm almost glad right now. I mean, I got 2 young kids, so in a lot of ways, I stopped playing a lot when my kids were really young. I always felt like you guys have kids. I mean, it's like. Imagine your wife is nursing your brand new baby and you're like, yeah, I'll be home at fucking 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Down 800, just what the fuck? You can't do that.
Yeah.
That's just not okay, So
tell me that, Jax, tell me that's not the loneliest drive at 3 a.m., 800 down, and you're just driving home on the dark highway. It's the worst drive. Yeah. But the other side of that,
Kings and the king came through the window. You're like, fuck. Yeah.
Man, well, at least you're not in Minnesota. I mean, I feel fortunate that we can play fantasy sports, but that's fantasy sports and then the lottery. That's what we have for gambling.
Yeah, you guys don't have card rooms either.
No, well, there is Indian casinos. They have card rooms, but it's just kind of, I don't know. It's not it's not really the same. And I don't even know if they do poker in the card rooms. I mean, I hardly ever darken the door of a casino, but I just want to have online sports betting. That's what I want.
I don't really.
And you don't have that, Dan?
No.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
The closest I can get to it is for some reason it'll let us do underdog pick'ems.
That's so weird.
So,
I can't even draft on underdog. I can't do anything.
Yeah. So I can do the pick'ems on underdog, and that's as close as I can get to gambling.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's really crazy. I mean, I love it. There's card rooms close. I can go and play, and there's it's just a card room, 3 poker tables, and sometimes there's just 1 table. There's not enough people to play, or there's a couple tables and a little waiting list.
Is that legit casino or kind of underground styles?
No, it's legit. Yeah, it's legit.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, the whole thing. It's a casino, but I live in the middle of nowhere, kind of. I mean, it's just not very heavily populated. It's 32,000 people in San Luis and 20,000 people in Paso, where I live. So it's these are smaller communities to some degree, and so it's just not. We're sort of a corridor. We're right on the coast, so we have the ocean to one side and fucking nothing inland. It's just nothing, mountains. So it's just a along the coast shit. So. It's not a lot of surrounding areas. So even though it's 30,000 or whatever is not a small town, it's the only fucking thing, So yeah, there's a couple of card rooms. It's a lot of fun, but everybody too. So it feels degenerate. It feels real fun.
So what's your tie to Canada? Are you Canadian or no?
Me, no, eh?
Oh, okay.
No,
because I guess the Undroppables. Is there a couple Canadians? Is that what it is?
We're worldwide, baby.
Okay,
but hey, listen. My last name is Belanger. Right?
Bélanger. Hey,
Boulanger,
t'es un
right?
Bélanger,
Yeah.
câlisse.
So listen, my son's name, of course, Leon, wherever, right? Leon,
Yep.
fucking great. George Boulanger. So it's a Leon Georges Boulanger. So you could say it in French and be right there, baby. He's gonna get laid for sure.
Love it.
We gotta end it on that.